Welcome to Jesús Manuel Mena Garza Photography, Video, and Audio. Today I'm going to be talking about my old studio space in Silicon Valley, where I operated a darkroom, a storefront, and also a studio space, and I had my offices in there. As compared to contemporary Jesús Manuel Mena Garza and what I'm doing today. And what would I use if I could go back in time and still have that studio space back in the days? Again, this is in the 80s, 90s. By 2000, I had moved to Texas and I'd worked for another company. And I still was doing photography, but I was doing it more as a freelancer and as an employee of a utility company. So back in the 80s and 90s, again, I had my own studio space on North 13th Street near Taylor in San Jose, California. People would walk in off the street, ask me for a photograph. Of course, I had my typical clientele that I got to know and worked for. One of my major clients was the San Jose Business Journal, or as it's known today, the Silicon Valley Business Journal. It's a newspaper for the area, and had an opportunity to photograph a lot of folks and a lot of products through that channel. So at that time, everything was analog. Okay, so when I photographed something, I would photograph it with either a 4x5, 5x7 view camera, or my Hasselblad, or I would borrow somebody's 35 millimeter, because by that, I think in the early 80s, somebody stole my Nikon. I just kept my Hasselblad. So let's say, for example, somebody walked in the studio. I would have my tripod at the same location with the same super heavy tripod right there, and my camera, my 150 millimeter, lens on my Hasselblad, and I would just move back or forth. It was a very long space. So that's the most important thing for most photo studios. You can have that wall being 10 feet wide, but if you can go back 30 feet, that makes it plausible for you to, do group shots. And you can move forward and do individual shots, okay? If you don't have a bunch of lenses. I had a 150, was it a 150? 150 and a 50 and an 80. So I only had those three lenses. So I would photograph individuals in that studio space using my lights, flash, good old days. And I would photograph them, and then I'd process it in my little darkroom and give the client a proof sheet with all the photographs right there. They can pick which one they like the best, et cetera, et cetera. So that was my situation back in the day, okay? So walk-in clients, commercial clients. I would do a lot of executive portraits. I would go to the spaces of these high-tech companies and photograph everybody from, Gordon Moore, the list goes on, and all the different folks in Silicon Valley. And of course, I did also fashion photography. In my studio space, I, did portfolios, stuff like that. All the whole range of glamour to high-end clothing photography. I didn't consider myself a fashion photographer. I had a lot of friends who borrowed my space to shoot, portfolios and do a lot of fashion photography, but I wasn't known for that. I was primarily known as an event photographer. I would go to different events, especially of the Silicon Valley Chamber of Commerce, and of course, weddings, quinceañeras, bar mitzvahs, and I would photograph those events and shoot a lot of stuff. I had typically, again, for weddings, I would shoot with my Hasselblad. I would put a soft R1 on it, not a soft R2 nor 3, just a soft R1, and I would photograph the whole event with a 50 and pretty much most of it. And then once in a while, I shoot with the 150, but primarily, the 82.8. I think it was 82.8. Very nice lens, very sharp. So I use a soft R because to make it a little more glamorous at the time, to soften up the focus, because the Hasselblad was too sharp, and these people were sweating. People were not the most beautiful people in the world, typically, okay? I know photographers back in the day who did a lot of fashion, and especially portfolios, would photograph somebody, make a gigantic print, about 24 by 36 was gigantic back in the day. And then they would have somebody airbrush all the features off. I had friends who did professional airbrushing, so it'd make him look smoother, take away that flab under the arm, et cetera, et cetera. And then they'd get it back to the photographer, and the photographer would photograph the photograph, and that would be the new photograph for that person's portfolio. Not very honest. That person does not look like the portfolio photograph. They have more use, on their face, arms, and body. They don't look exactly, pristine. Okay. So I enjoyed that time. I did a lot. I met a lot of people, had a lot of fun, and all my friends were photographers. And we hung out. We did photo shoots in the studio. My friends wanted to use my darkroom. I'm using my darkroom, and of course, I sold products. I still have some of my products here. I have a extensive, very goofy, extensive collection. And you may laugh. I have a lot of bulbs. Flash bulbs from the day. Enlarger bulbs for slide projectors, and different pieces of equipment. I have a whole collection of different types, of bulbs. Just call me weird. I have a collection of bulbs. Today, if I had the same studio space, I was still in Silicon Valley. I was still shooting for the Silicon Valley, newspaper, and et cetera, and say had the same clientele. You can use a wide range of excellent cameras out there. Everything from the top of the line Fujifilm, APS-C, camera, to the Nikon Z8, to the top of the line Lumix, et cetera, the top of the line Canon. And when we talk top of the line, we're talking about not the super high end. I'm not talking about the Nikon Z9, which my friend has. The Z8 would be perfectly fine with a nice view lens. I could photograph, that bar mitzvah, do those portraits in the studio, do those group shots of the executives. And I've done that, group shots of everybody at Silicon Valley Journal, right in the front of the building. I photographed them all. And I could do that with, that camera, and it would come out absolutely fantastic for newspapers, for social media, and for their office, et cetera, et cetera. Just saying. So you do not have to buy the absolute top of the line, camera for most situations. So I'm just saying that today I would be very happy with the, I think it's the H series Fujifilm, or the 8 series Nikon, or, pretty much the top of the line for the Lumix series, the Nikons, etc. I would not, in all probability, buy, the rangefinder style, the ones where you peer through the side. I would buy the one that have the fake pentaprism on the top. I would buy something like that. Mirrorless camera. I would prefer something, if I was doing stuff in the studio, doing those group shots, doing those weddings, bar mitzvahs, and stuff like that, quinceañeras, events. I was asked to shoot and videotape events, Silicon Valley events back in the day. It wasn't videotape. I didn't shoot video until the late 90s. That's when I started shooting video in San Francisco and San Jose of events. That's when I actually could borrow some video equipment. And, at that time, it was just, SD quality, not, FH, not 1080p, not 4K, just basic, old school quality, okay? Of course, with that camera, I could shoot that event rather readily. I just have to make sure it's a 1.4 or 2.8 at least. And I can shoot it at, 800, 1600 in dark situations, and 4 to 500 if it's very well lit. I've gone to performances where I was asked to photograph, actually presentation on the stage, and I go, man, this is well lit, fabulous. take an exposure meter reading. Back in the day, I used to have a spot meter. I still have that spot meter. And I would say, hey, this is a perfect exposure. I can shoot this at 125 at f4, and it's perfectly fine. But I would shoot it at either 400, 800, or 1600. I would take the film and process that Tri-X, or whatever kind of film I'm using at that time, film, and I would push it and make it into 800 or 1600. There's a specific schedule that you use when you're processing that film, etc., etc. You already know that stuff. So thanks for watching my video. Hope you enjoyed it. I really find that a lot of cameras that people are using today, I could use, back in the day, I would really have enjoyed using digital equipment, be it, in Photoshop and also in DaVinci Resolve. I would have had a lot of fun. It would have been, no more darkroom. Instead of the darkroom, I would put my workstation in there. Maybe even in the office. I'd be in the office with my view of the street, 13th Street, just working on stuff. That would be absolutely fantastic. But back in the day, the work style that I had was shoot, process. Sometimes if I shot color, I would just drop it off at the lab, pick it up, and show the proofs to the client and say, let's get some of these. I would recommend that one. And for weddings and quinceañeras and bar mitzvahs, et cetera, and group shots, if individuals, I would show them, the proofs, and they would say, yeah, I like that one. That would work very nicely for my poster. I shot boxers. I shot musicians. I shot women who danced at the local bar down the street, and, they were very friendly. And the nuns, just a block away, half a block away, I shot the portraits of the nuns, etc. So it was a very diverse and very interesting, clientele. Hope you enjoyed this video. Again, if you have a studio today, you do not have to buy the Z9. In fact, you can probably use the Z8. Do not buy the ones below that, because if you go to a wedding, if you go to a quinceañera, if you go to that professional shoot, you do not want to have the same camera as the pop, the mom, the friends, and the people that work at that location have. You want to at least have a step above theirs. The Z8 is very nice, but you don't want to have a 6 or something like that, because everybody else goes, yeah, that's the same camera I have, and I'm shooting the wedding. Why? They could have paid me instead of you. I have I have the same camera you do. You don't want that. Again, a lot of times it's important to show a bit of status, that you have a better camera than everybody else. Just saying. I think my friend with the Z9 gets jobs just the fact that he has a Z9. Everybody's going, oh, that's a nice camera. Can you work for us? Thanks for watching my video. This has been Jesús Manuel Mena Garza talking about my experience as a photographer and filmmaker and eventually a videographer, and now in the digital age. I'm enjoying myself. I enjoy using, Photoshop. I enjoy using DaVinci Resolve. It makes things, so much easier. And I like shooting with my digital camera, taking 100 shots instead of only 24 or 36 or 12, as in the case of my Hasselblad with the A12 back. Clunk, A12, A24. You know what I'm talking about. Thanks for watching my video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. I would greatly appreciate it. It helps the algorithm if you like, subscribe, and share. And of course, if you comment below and give me what camera you like and what camera that you use currently, it'll help out my very modest channel in the algorithm. Again, muchísimos gracias a todos a ustedes. Tutto bene. And of course, you can check out my Patreon page, patreon.com/JMM Garza. And of course, I do offer memberships. You go in the description, and I have some information about my memberships and also some links to other videos if you find them interesting. And of course, don't forget to ring the bell for future notifications. And if you want, I think it's in this corner. I think I got it finally right. In this corner right here, you can scan the QR code with your camera, your smartphone, and it'll give you a link to my website, jmmgarza.com. So you can check out my photographs and go, those are the worst photographs I've ever seen in my life. I don't know what he's talking about that he knows about photography. Of course, my photographs are actually pretty good. Again, they've been exhibited in museums from coast to coast and internationally, and they are in the collection of the Smithsonian for what that's worth. Thanks for watching my video. This has been Jesús Manuel Mena Garza. Gracias. Adios. Bye-bye.